This module discussed the problem of nullability, and if C# was completely redesigned today, I can almost guarantee that they'd make it even harder for us to use nulls. It's just a matter of time before you run into a null reference exception, if you haven't already. By default, any reference type in C# can be set to null. With the help of the nullable reference types, we can indicate that all reference types are now assumed to be non-null. In .NET 6, this setting was made the default, and all projects now have nullable reference types enabled. You can turn this setting on in the project settings, and it's a per-project configuration. Together with treat warnings as errors, this makes a powerful addition to your toolkit. If you want to use nulls, you have to explicitly define that this is the intent. You can do that just like you've defined nullable value types previously. You use a question mark when specifying the reference type you are using. For example, an order that is allowed to be null. This can now be set to null. And everywhere in the application where you access this, the compiler will try its best to determine if it's been set to an instance or not. You can try your best to guard against nulls, either by using if statements, pattern matching, the null conditional operator, the null coalescing operator, or the null coalescing assignment. There are plenty of ways to work around nulls. The benefit of the nullable reference types is that it helps you to find where using nulls in your application may cause a problem. It's not a silver bullet, and the compiler will not always be able to figure out if you've performed a null check. You can use the null forgiving operator to indicate that you have already performed a null check elsewhere when the compiler cannot determine that. Be careful with that though. Try to rely on the attributes for null state static analysis if you end up in that situation. Only use the null forgiving operator as your last resort. Finally, we saw how to use the helper method throw if null on the argument null exception. This is a great guard against unexpected null references. In the next module, we are going to talk about how to slice an array using the range syntax, how to use an index to get the last element in an array, as well as how to introduce an indexer.